Hi class, and welcome to my mini teaching lesson. This is my wife Ingrid. You can say hello too.
Oh, hello.
We are going to be discussing the Declaration of Independence today.
Great.
So before I get into any of the standards that we'll be covering today, I wanted to ask you first a couple questions to gauge your background knowledge on the Declaration of Independence.
Okay.
Some basics that I would go over with my students are: when was it written?
In 1776.
Great. And who wrote it?
Some Americans who wanted independence from Britain.
Great. That's a good general answer. Do you know any more specifically the author?
Like Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson is often cited as the primary author, and then a lot of the other founding fathers were kind of copy editors for it. How about why was it written?
Because the U.S. the now U.S. wanted to explain its complaints against what they saw as tyranny of Britain.
Great. Good vocab word.
Declare their freedom as their own independent country.
Excellent. Okay. So with that in mind, our lesson today is called A Declaration for Whom? And we will be building towards an investigation of two different historians' analyses of why the Founding Fathers wrote the Declaration of Independence and the grievances against King George III exactly the way that they did. And before we do that, before we get to analysis, I want to make sure that you have a basis of understanding what we're talking about, taking a look at the text and investigating it for yourself before we get into analyzing it. So the standards that we will be covering today focus on both the civics idea that we're analyzing and evaluating the way in which the fundamental documents of the United States promote key ideals and principles. And the central focus of our lesson is helping you and students to evaluate differing points of view about the same historical event or document or issue, and assessing the author's claims and understanding the reasoning and evidence behind it. So we'll be doing that on two levels. You will be making your own assertions based upon the Declaration of Independence, and then also taking a look at historians and understanding where they're writing from in their own context.
Okay.
So again, our essential guiding question is, why did the Founding Fathers write the Declaration of Independence? So the first thing that I would like to do today is I'm going to pass you out this document, which is the preamble. The preamble is a foreword to the specific set of grievances where the Founding Fathers and these idealists really got to lay out their mission statement for why they thought they should be free from British rule and why they were entitled to it. So there are some key vocabulary words that I would like you to be aware of before we go into it. So your first activity is to do a skim through this reading and taking a look at these 7 vocabulary words that I have up on the board right now. Underline the word in the text and draw a line out from it with this 1 to 2 word definition that I've put up on the board. So it's a little shorthand for you to make sure that you know what those words are when we read it. Muddy and other classmates, I decided to not do the picture-in-picture because this allowed for better video quality and focus on the actual student and the work that we were doing. So those words that you guys cannot see that are up on our screen are dissolve, impel, self-evident, endowed, unalienable, deriving, and consent. So now our activity. You have some basic annotations of some of the more advanced level vocabulary, and we are going to now watch, and for you at home, listen to a YouTube video of some famous actors reading and performing the preamble. And so what I would like you to do is add some of your own annotations as you listen and watch, and consider how some of these words might fit into the context a little bit better now that you have these more simple definitions of these 7 vocabulary words. All right?
When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them.
A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government.
Laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness.
Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes.
And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed.
But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security.
That ends the preamble, and they're about to go into reading the body of the specific grievances. When I say grievances, what word could you say instead of grievances?
Complaints.
Complaints,
Sounds
perfect.
light.
Yeah. No, but yeah, so it's more serious level complaints at the king.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So based upon what you heard, I saw you taking a lot of notes. What were some things that stood out to you?
I think that it is clear that the people who wrote this wanted freedom for their own values, and it seemed that they want, and perhaps I know this just by my own knowledge, but representation for themselves. They want representation by the people rather than this monarchy that is in charge. That they're not doing this lightly, that their decision to declare independence is a big deal, and that they have a responsibility to do it because they are at odds with the government that's leading them, and so they have a duty to make themselves be heard.
Very good. Very good summary. My students would, at this, leading up to this lesson, have a background in the French and Indian War and the Coercive Acts and the Stamp Act and the Boston Tea Party, and so they would have a context for some of those, what feel like overbearing structure that the king and Cromwell had put in place, that the colonists were fighting, pushing back against.
Mm-hmm.
Great. The next step of our exercise that I would like you to do is read aloud for us paragraph 2.2.
Mm-hmm. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles, and organizing its powers in such form, as to them shall seem most likely to effect their safety and happiness.
Very well read. All right. Now, the next step is to turn over your paper, and I have given you some lines with which to write your own version. If you like, you can go ahead and read the instructions aloud.
In your own words, compose your own version of the Preamble 2.2 as written above for a contemporary audience, and as if you were trying to explain it to a 10-year-old.
Great.
All right.
Okay, so I'd like to give you a couple minutes to do that, and then we'll have some time left for you to share it out on screen.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Am I taking too long?
It's all right.
Okay.
All right. We have about a minute left on the recording capacity,
okay.
So if you'd be willing to share out what you have.
All right. I wrote, government exists, at least partly, to protect rights that its people think are important, even foundational. If the government fails to protect these rights, then the people should stand up for themselves, object, protest, and change the government so it better represents and protects them and their rights and values, such as safety and happiness.
Wonderful. Very well stated. So you might say that this paragraph is saying that the people have a justification to stand up against the government, king or otherwise, when they feel that it is wrong or doing harm to the people or no longer in the best interest of the people.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, now we can get on with the rest of the lesson, but this is a preview of the opening activity of my lesson on the Declaration of Independence. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Ingrid.